Hello, welcome to Screen Time. I have been wanting to watch a big movie in a big theatre for a long time, and that's when I got to watch Ponniyin Selvan. ഇത് കണ്ട് വന്നപ്പോൾ I felt all the overwhelm and all the excitement that a movie theatre can only give you. ഇതൊരു on-demand കാണേണ്ട സിനിമ അല്ല. And I'm very, very glad that I got to see this movie, and I'm going to review it today for you guys. Simply put, the story follows our protagonist, who is a who is a warrior prince. He follows the warrior prince across Chola dynasty. He's on a mission. Avarade Vayandarikkinna king is having a lot of trouble at the kingdom, and there is mutiny in the palace. But this warrior prince is on a journey to inform the crown prince, the princess, and another prince about this mutiny, and they all have to work together to save the kingdom and race against time. Simply, that is the story. However, what happens is you see so many different characters and so many different plot lines happen simultaneously that it's quite hard to grasp. This movie is based on a book written by Kalki, and ee pusthakam vaayikatha aalkarkku I admit it will be quite hard to keep up with this story. ഞാൻ വായിച്ചിട്ടില്ല, അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ സിനിമ കാണുമ്പോൾ multiple plot lines, multiple characters, there's a lot going on. It's very hard to keep up. But if you slow down and really pay attention, there is a gripping story in the middle of all of it. Compiled, this massive story, അത് കുറേ വോള്യൂംസ് ഉള്ളൊരു പുസ്തകമാണ്. അതൊരു സിനിമയിലേക്ക് അവർ കമ്പൈൽ ചെയ്ത് ക്രിസ്പാക്കി കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ ശ്രമിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. It is difficult to keep up with. Now this is a Maniratnam movie, right? There is beauty, there is opulence, there is grace, and all the women look so beautiful, all the men look so beautiful, costumes and jewelry and color. It is genuinely a visual feast. And other number visual journey focus you kind of get so lost in it that you can't keep track of what's actually going on in this kingdom. Music, to come to the music point, there's a fantastic score by A.R. Rahman. And I'm a big A.R. Rahman fan. However, at some points, the music takes over to the point where you can't really keep up again with what's going on. There are some fantastic songs, പക്ഷേ അത് സ്റ്റോറിയെ മുന്നോട്ട് പുഷ് ചെയ്യുന്ന plot points അല്ല. And that can also get quite hard to watch. Another point would be the fight sequences. There are some elaborate fight sequences, 4 if I remember correctly. The movie opens with a fight sequence, and it's this very elaborate war where our actor Vikram is slaying multiple people and stabbing and killing, and there's a lot of gore involved in that sense. And there's another fight sequence which I loved in a river involving an elephant and a couple of bandits coming and attacking our protagonist. And there is beauty. They've done a very graceful job at choreographing the action sequences. But throughout the film, I kept thinking, oh, this moment is very nice, but where am I going, right? I constantly kept feeling like, oh God, there's so much going on that I'm not able to keep up. And that kept coming back to me throughout the film. Now coming to the acting performances, I thought Aishwarya Rai did a brilliant job. And I don't think, it's an image that we have not seen her in. She is this evil, semi-cunning, plot-making, like one character in this kingdom who's controlling a lot of people, and our narrative push cheyan vendi pala tricks and tandrangal use ചെയ്ത് മൂവ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു ക്യാരക്ടറാണ്, and she really shines. എനിക്ക് സിനിമ കണ്ട് തിരിച്ചു വന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ മനസ്സിൽ ഓർത്ത് നിൽക്കുന്നത് is Aishwarya Rai's character. Then coming to our നമ്മുടെ main protagonist who we follow, നമ്മൾ ഒരു first half of the film all we follow is Karthiyude character, and he moves through a lot of Chola dynasty. So we get to see a lot of the landscapes and a lot of the celebration and the women and the markets, and that's quite interesting to watch visually. They're painting a very nice picture of what 10th century Chola dynasty looked like, and that can be very nice. However, coming to that point, because they are painting a visual history, and because cinema is such a powerful tool at painting nammade understanding of where we come from, where we're going, it can get quite tricky because there are some details that are missing here and there. Now there is a discussion at large about cinema they've used Chola king as Sundara Chola as a Hindu king, and he isn't really. At that time, 10th century Chola dynasty Hindu nalloru vaakilla, Hinduism nalloru concept illa. The community was divided into Shaivites, Vaishyites, and others. It was not coined as the Hindu term. That term came about way later, post-colonial sametha. but this movie refers to that king as a Hindu king, as well as certain points where they've used massive CG to kind of decorate the landscapes and the ship sequences, and that can get interesting. However, there are little details where you know that there's a lot of creative freedom taken to elaborate the landscape in a way that it's not realistic. Like at one point, I remember the palace was actually shot somewhere in Jaipur, and it's a very recognizable tourist spot in Jaipur that we're seeing as a Chola dynasty kingdom, court space, and that doesn't add up really. So I feel like because they were so focused on the visual aspect and creating this beautiful, aesthetically brilliant piece, perhaps a lot was lost in thinking about the politics of the film or the messaging and what it kind of tells you to the people who are looking towards it to see a history lesson almost. Because it is Chola dynasty, in my head I can't think of another film that does it in such a large scale. So you do wonder if they've taken that responsibility seriously. And on another hand, because it is a Mani Ratnam movie, I feel like the best part is those sequences where there are interactions between, duos of characters. Now, the conversations between Aishwarya Rai's character and her partner's character, Sharat Kumar's character, there's some fantastic sequences where she's seducing this court minister into, cunningly doing whatever she wants him to do. Or the very funny sequences between Jairam and Karthi in the marketplace. There's a lot of humor in those equations. Or the very complex dynamic between Trisha's character, who's our princess, she's our crown princess, and Aishwarya Rai's character. There's a lot going on. If you look at certain brackets of the film, they are trying to tell us a lot about complex human interactions. And the politics of being part of a kingdom, what does it actually mean, the weight of that power. But I don't know, I personally felt like there was so much going on that at the end of it, I feel a little exhausted, honestly, a little bit. And I know there's a second movie coming out, this is only the first half, and I'm already so tired, I'm wondering, okay, will I remember any of this to wait for it for the next year? And that can be quite, disappointing, especially because, again, not to make comparisons, but because Bahubali set off this large, string of epic movies, I was super excited to find out who killed, why, Katappa killed Bahubali. Ee cinema avasanam angane oru cliffhanger illa. Maybe because it's also such a subtle story in comparison to what Bahubali was, where we had one plot, one hero, one justice. Idil angane illa. People are grey. The rights and wrongs are very tricky here. There's a lot of grey shades of people. Oru black and white story alla idu, which is probably why the cliffhanger is also not as sharp. A thing of pride is, in cinema there are quite a few Malayali actors, and it's like a little, glimmer moment where you're watching the film and you suddenly see Lal playing the grandfather of our dynasty king, or we have Aishwarya Lakshmi in the character of a fisherwoman, and they have done fantastic jobs. Specifically, who stood out to me was our man Jairam, in form that we have never seen him in. He is fantastic and hilarious. Physically, recognizing him in a form, Jairam, a very memorable performance by him. And he truly is the only bit of comic relief in an otherwise very heavy film. The points with him, you can kind of relax and chill and not have to take notes on what's going on in the movie. Now, speaking of the politics of a film, something I personally appreciated as a avid feminist is that usually, epic movies, period movies, Indiyil they take it as a moment to have women in the most scantily clad, navel-bearing, tube-top type of glamour. And they fetishize our condition of life. They have not done this in this movie. Every person, be it the men, be it the women, whoever involved, there's a certain grace and elegance around them. They all look regal. Whether it's the crown princess character or the fisherwoman's character, they're all treated visually with the same kind of respect and grace that's required. They don't use this as a moment to have overtly fetishized female bodies, and I really appreciated that. Costume department, jewelry, oh my God, just beautiful, right? At one point, I remember I was counting the number of jewels in a particular neck piece that I did not listen to the dialogue, and that can also become quite difficult. Now, I watched the Tamil movie with English subtitles. I understand Tamil, but I also was reading the English subtitles. I don't know how the Malayalam or the Hindi translations of this would be. And I am quite curious to find out, because the Tamil was heavy. It had that old-time dialect, and I wonder what it would be like for someone from a Tamil dialect or for the translation version to be sounding, will it sound hard to swallow, or was it an easy listen? I'm very curious about that. The cinematographer Ravi Varman has done a beautiful job at capturing all of this opulence without it feeling visually heavy, even though the story is heavy. Screen, the compositions do not overwhelm you. They are the right amount of movie experience magic. The one particular sequence, the fight sequence that I really enjoyed, is a sequence with the water. And I think Ravi Varman has done a fantastic job at capturing this sort of dance between the villain and the hero, and they have these swords and belts, and it's quite beautiful actually to watch. However, there are certain sequences where I was a little confused. We constantly have these static shots of monologues, long monologues, very well dimly lit, darks and crushed blacks. But there are certain sequences where suddenly the camera moves into handheld, and you're wondering, wait, am I involved? Is the perspective changing now? But I'm not sure, and that can get a little tricky. A couple of points did get quite imbalanced in that sense visually. Also, to talk about my favorite scene. Now, I have a favorite scene in most movies, and this movie I had a favorite scene, and I think the entire film kind of is explained in that one scene, truly. It's a point where our Miss Aishwarya Roy is standing in a beautiful crushed black courtroom, palace courtroom, and she's staring at the throne. And our actress, wonderfully, she's got beautiful green eyes naturally. What they have done is, using CG, they have turned up the green in her eye, and there's a green fire that lights up in her eyes while she's desiring towards this throne. And that truly is the story. The story is of power, of desire, of want, and what extent people are willing to go to get what they want. And I felt like that was the crux of the film, and that scene will remain with me forever. I think it's definitely going to be one of my favorite Mani Ratnam scenes of all time. Another very exciting choreographed sequence is when you see the backstory, like the climax point of the film, where you see Vikram's character, who again, with his beautiful long curls, he looks great, but you see him having a mental breakdown. He's trying to tell us his intentions behind why he is the way he is, and that sort of paints a picture about our film. But that sequence is shot so brilliantly. It's got these hazy sort of camera movements, moving back and forth. You feel like you're inside his head, where he's got this running monologue, he's describing his pain, and it's hard to grasp. And just like how he's feeling, we are not able to entirely have clarity. And that moment is so beautiful because it's telling us clearly what's going on, but also involving us in his personal experience of this utter confusion, utter this kind of break of madness that he's about to have, or has been having rather. However, there's one other point. Another problem I had with the film was that, again, this is not so much to do with the film, more to do with Kalki's story. And it may be like anachronistic to say that ഇത്രയും പഴക്കമുള്ള ഒരു സ്റ്റോറി ഇപ്പോൾ എത്ര റെലവെൻ്റ് ആണ് in terms of, I'm not talking about the kingdom aspect or the epicness of it, but I'm saying as a story, what does it actually tell today, for us today, listening today? And it bothered me that ഇത്രയൊക്കെ കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടും, in the end, it's because, spoiler alert, it's because of a heartbreak. It really bothered me that we're seeing people kill themselves and kill other people over a heartbreak. I don't know what that means, especially in a society where we have people killing each other over getting rejected, and there's so much of danger that there's a lot of danger in that messaging, and I found that very difficult to digest. Now, maybe that's just me, because I do think a lot about the effect that a film has on the people watching. So that point really did, it was kind of a kallugadi, so to speak, in the film, because it was so beautiful, there was so much going on, even though I was lost at times. But this being the crux, that our protagonist is heartbroken, I felt like that was a little bit of a letdown in one sense, yeah. So to conclude, Ponniyin Selvan was the best sort of movie experience I have had in a long time at a theatre. However, there was a lot going on. There were a lot of main characters, there were a lot of big actors, there was a lot of presence that maybe I as an audience was a little lost and fumbled in the middle of the story itself. However, I was very glad to have seen this movie. Also, side note, extremely proud of our man Maniratnam, like to pull off such a massive movie, because I feel like we've always seen him deal with micro emotions between couples of people and in interactions between couples or you know, smaller groups. And it was great that he pulled together this massive cast and massive production. I feel really happy to have seen that. Pinne, I will be back again with another movie next week. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense to you and we can keep this conversation going. Thank you.